welcome back into the First and 30 Football Podcast on a Monday morning. We had some breaking news Sunday night and then again Monday morning with some contract extensions in the NFL. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, they finally get their big extensions as well. Houston extends their top corner, Derek Stingley. We're going to be talking about all that in today's episode of the First and 30 Football Podcast. Make sure if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you love the NFL, you smash that button. We are now officially on the road to 300 subscribers. I appreciate all of your guys' support. Let's hop into this Jamar Chase and T. Higgins situation because I'm seeing a lot of narrative online, some that I agree with, some that I don't. As always, the truth is somewhere in the middle, and I think that there's a little bit of realistic expectations that some people online need to adjust to that they're not quite factoring in with these deals. Jamar Chase, coming off the Triple Crown, gets 4 for $161 million with $112 million guaranteed. The Bengals hold on to their word. They said this offseason they were going to make Jamar Chase the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Many thought that that was going to be $36 million a year, maybe just a little bit more than Jefferson in this same vein. Myles Garrett goes out and gets $40 million a year. The Bengals hold to their word with Jamar Chase. $40.25 million per year. They make him the highest paid guy. Coming off the Triple Crown, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in all of football. Him and Jefferson are 1A, 1B, but I think after last season, you have to at least give the slight edge to Jamar Chase just with the production that he had. This is a deal that everybody saw coming. T. Higgins, 4 for $115 with the first 2 years of the deal guaranteed. So I think this contract is really the more important one, because everybody kind of knew the Jamar Chase deal was going to happen, and rightfully so thought that it should. The T. Higgins deal is where we're getting a lot of talk up here as to, should this have happened? Are the Bengals paying too much? Is this not where it should be? At this price, T. Higgins, under the $30 million per year mark, just slightly under it. The first 2 years is all that's guaranteed. I think that's very important to note, because I think that basically the Bengals aren't telling you this is a 4-year window. They're telling you this is a 2-year window, because if at the end of these 2 years, it hasn't been productive, T. Higgins is going to want to re-up his contract because he's out of guaranteed money, and the team's going to move him. That's the truth of it. While these are 4-year deals, Chase is going to want to re-up his contract after 3 years. Higgins after 2. They are telling you they are committing to this all offense mindset for 2 years, and they're willing to see how it goes. I think in general, both wide receivers got their market value. Jamar Chase being the highest paid. Again, we could all agree there. That's fine. Like, even if you think Jefferson is better, Jamar was the next guy to get paid. Makes the sense in the world. In my opinion, Higgins is a top 15 guy in the NFL. And I didn't think that that was this big, decisive opinion that I had here, that T. Higgins is a top 15 guy. Yet, I'm finding out that that is not a common opinion. It is a split world out there. And I'll say this, playing next to the best wide receiver in the NFL and missing some games and still finishing with double-digit touchdowns, T. Higgins, 6'4", solid speed for his size, good separation, great footwork, elite hands. Like, this is a really talented guy. And this is a guy who would be a wide receiver 1 on half the teams in this league. That's why you have to pay him his market value. That's where you pay him $30 million a year. That's where, when last year Devonta Smith got extended, he got that kind of market value. He got 25 a year, a little below where Higgins is at, but that makes sense. Cap went up. Same thing with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. When those two guys got paid, they both got wide receiver 1 money. This to me is not a mind-boggling amount of money for T. Higgins. In their biggest game last year against the Broncos, that Saturday game that went to overtime, Higgins had 11 for 130 and 3 touchdowns in the game winner in overtime. Like, the guy produces at an elite value when he's out there. So to me, he got the money he deserved. Whether or not the Bengals were smart for paying 2 wide receivers, we'll get to that conversation. I think anything that the most consensus opinion here that I think anybody would agree with, though. Not if it's a mistake or not, but what was for sure a mistake was the timing of paying them. If you were going to pay these guys, and I think that this is just a message across the NFL, the way that money is booming, the way that the salary cap is going, it is better to pay your star players early, because it only goes up in price. It doesn't go down in value. Waiting out a contract doesn't work to get less on a guy unless he gets hurt. And at the end of the day, if you could shake your magic 8-ball and say, will my guy be healthy and I'll pay him more, or hurt and then maybe I don't even want to pay him at all, like, you're picking the healthy and pay him more. Just pay them when you have the opportunity, especially if you already know the production is there. That's where I stand on it. The only position that I kind of am 50-50 on is actually quarterback. Just because, how many can you truly win with? But this is a conversation for another day. But in terms of wide receivers, defensive ends, cornerbacks, top of the line running backs, top of the line offensive tackles, you pay them when it's available, because the price is only going up at this point in time. When you look back last year, Jamar Chase could have been extended for $5 million less than he was. And if you really went out and got him extended before Jefferson, maybe $7-8 million per year less over the course of a contract, you could be saving, $30 million. T. Higgins has been franchise tagged the last 2 years. If you paid him when you had the opportunity 2 years ago, what are we looking at? 4 for $90? Something in that range? 3 for $70 something? The Michael Pittman Jr. contract? At the end of the day, and we're going to get to my thoughts on it, whether you think it's a mistake or not that they're paying these guys, the mistake truly is when you paid them. This holdout. And I understand some of it has to do with potentially the Bengals owner not having money. And he didn't have enough to put in escrow for these guaranteed contracts. Because again, to get a little nerdy here, the way that it works is you don't have to put the whole contract in escrow, but whatever money you guarantee has to go in escrow. So last night, the owner of the Bengals had to put, what are we looking at here? 112 plus, I guess, like around, the guy had to throw about $170 million in escrow. Cash, liquid, had to go in there, had to prove to the NFL that he had this money. He's the only owner in the NFL that's not a billionaire. And, oh, poor him. But when you're making moves like this, you got to have cash. And maybe he didn't have it. But maybe if you don't have it and the salary's booming like this, it's time to bring in an ownership group. So since he's got to have a question there for sure. Now, the question at hand. Was it a mistake for the Cincinnati Bengals to go all in on offense like this? Was it a mistake for the Cincinnati Bengals to commit 44% of their cap to 3 players and 2 of them that play the same position? Is that the correct way to run a football team? My general answer is no. That is not the correct way to do it. I do believe in a just basic football roster mentality. That is a mistake. I do not believe $30 million a year to your wide receiver 2 is smart spending when you are already somebody who was kind of pressed for cash. That doesn't translate. I think there is a lot of young talent in the draft that if you spent your first round pick this year on a Luther Burden, on an Emeka Egbuka, on a Matthew Golden, and you would let T. Higgins walk, or you traded him on this franchise tag and got an additional second round pick, and then you shored up Trey Hendrickson, you wouldn't skip a beat offensively. There might be games where you really miss T. Higgins' presence, but at the end of the day, you do have Jamar Chase, and you do have Joe Burrow. And with having that, and having one of these, these first round wide receivers, even if they don't hit at the highest level, over the last few years, I'd say all of them are solid NFL players. And when you have a top 5 quarterback, you can make it work. I mean, look at what Mahomes is doing with the Chiefs. This year, Worthy, the first round pick, was just their number 1 option. When it really, I understand Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce, but at the end of the day, Worthy became their number 1 option, especially in the playoffs. aside from that Houston game. And Cincinnati has Jamar Chase. So you'd be asking this wide receiver 2 to come in and realistically be a 2. You have Chase Brown, you have Gesicki who's shown potential. To me, if no emotions were tied and it was just how would I build a roster, T. Higgins would have been moved. However, I do think it's important when we look at this to note that this isn't Madden. This isn't how you'd build your roster with no strings attached. This is real life, and there's more factors that go into it rather than how does this team look on paper and how do I think that they could compete on paper. There is the reality of the fact that Joe Burrow, the Cincinnati Bengals franchise quarterback, you could argue the most talented player in the franchise's history. Bengals fans, like, don't come for me in the comment section there. In terms of the position he plays, how good he is at it, this could be the guy that gives the Bengals the best opportunity to compete for Super Bowls in their franchise history. I could word it that way because I know Anthony Munoz, I understand. What I'm saying is, in terms of impact on winning, Joe Burrow may be the highest impact on winning player Cincinnati has ever had. And he's becoming disgruntled. Some of it fair, some of it not so fair. They've missed the playoffs the last 2 years. 2 years ago, he was in and out with injury, and even when he was playing, he wasn't 100%. I really think, not that it's his fault, but his health was the reason they missed the playoffs 2 years ago. Last year, the guy throws for 5,000 passing yards and is just constantly in shootouts and doesn't have the defense behind him. And I understand his frustration there. And does it make sense to me, logically, that following up that, he said, let's run it back with Higgins and Chase? It doesn't. But at the end of the day, you can't afford to piss off Joe Burrow if you're the Bengals. Unfortunately, you had to bend the knee to them. And to the Bengals' credit, I think they walked that line as best they could. Because the last thing you need is Joe Burrow requesting a trade. The last thing you need is another Carson Palmer repeat of, I'd rather retire and stare at my ceiling than, play for you guys. I'd rather be on the golf course. I'd rather sipping, Bloody Marys in the morning than play with you guys. You can't afford that. And if this makes Joe Burrow happy, at the end of the day, fine. We're drafting defense then. And in O-line. And we'll try and make it work. And at the end of the day, 44% of their cap and 3 guys, they still have some money to play with to field a competent team. The problem with fielding all that money in 2 wide receivers is you can't really afford mess ups anymore. You can't miss on a free agent. You can't whiff on one. You can't whiff on your first round draft pick. You probably can't even miss on your second round draft pick at this point. The Bengals really, that front office has to be almost perfect at this point in time. Again, is it what I would have done? All things considered. Maybe. All things considered, I think T. Higgins would have been playing on the franchise tag this year, and I would have said, Joe, we are happy to extend him if this shows a winning methodology. But at the end of the day, we missed the playoffs the last 2 years. We don't think this is right, but you want it, so we're willing to give you a shot. Truthfully, that's how I would have done it. Because at the end of the day, this philosophy hasn't shown winning. They had that Super Bowl run a couple years ago, and it feels like the success of that run is something that Cincinnati's really running off of at this point. And don't get me wrong, fourth quarter close game, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins driving down the field. I feel uneasy as a defensive coordinator, as a fan of the other team. But with the best of the best teams, that's just usually not the case. Usually by the fourth quarter, you're up a score or 2 because their defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. We'll see if it pans out. I do think in general it was a football mistake, but I think in real life, with the implications of, hey, how's Joe Burrow feel about this? What does our franchise quarterback want? Do we want another Carson Palmer situation? I get it. They were kind of backed into a tough spot, the front office. And listen, at the end of the day, Higgins is talented. And again, In 2 years' time, if you're not winning, it's not like you won't get something decent for the guy. He's a premier player in the league. Can they bring back Trey Hendrickson? Real quick, reports came out from Diana Rossini this morning that the Bengals are determined to get him back. It's possible. My concern there is, again, 44% of the cap is already tied up in Burrow, Higgins, and Chase. If you sign Hendrickson, let's lowball it, $30 million per year. The guy is averaging 17 and a half sacks, has led the NFL in sacks last year and has had 17 and a half sacks in back-to-back seasons. Like, the guy is going to get 30 million a year. Bosa's at 35, Myles Garrett's at 40. You could argue Hendrickson's probably going to be closer to 35, but if we lowball it even at 30, we're looking at over 50% of the cap, probably closer to 60% of the cap and 4 guys. And then you got to fill out the other 48 men on the roster with the rest of the money left. Your job gets even tougher. It's not to say that they can't do it, but I almost wonder if they would be better off trading Hendrickson and getting a back-end first-round pick if they can. Can they move him to Green Bay for Green Bay's first in some world? Can they get Detroit's first? I don't know. But adding as much early round talent as possible might be the better move if you're Cincinnati here. Get as many cheap, good players as you can. And the best spot to do that's the draft. And then I want to touch here on the Houston Texans extending Derek Stingley. 3 years, $90 million with $89 million guaranteed. I don't know what we're doing there. I don't know why we're not guaranteeing the full amount. I don't know if there's an extra million that Houston really needs in this year's cap to make something work, to bring in a free agent that they have planned. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I guess the semantics of that don't really matter. I thought Stingley was going to be getting a 4-year, $120 million deal, or a 5-year, 104. Like, I thought there was going to be more years attached to this. The guaranteed money, though, that's kind of what's important to players nowadays. Because once your guaranteed money's out, you just re-up the contract anyways. So even if we were 4 for 120, it was probably going to be just 89 guaranteed anyways. So Stingley said, that's fine. Like, we'll just re-up in 3 years anyways and give you guys more flexibility. I do think it was a win-win for both sides here. Stingley gets the money he has earned. He's a top 2 corner in this sport. Him and Pat Surtain Jr. I think that's where it's at. I think that is 1A, 1B. And I think I look at it similar to the way that I do Jefferson and Chase. You could flip-flop it any which way you want. I think any given day, one guy could be better than the other. I know general consensus is that Surtain's the guy. I think Stingley's right up there with him. I think he's the best ball hawk in the NFL. Surtain, I think, is a more pure coverage corner, but I think Derek Stingley could intercept any pass thrown his direction. And turnovers win you games. He was an absolute menace to Justin Herbert in that playoff game. And it's just what he does. His closing speed, you'll think a guy's open, and he'll bait you into thinking a receiver's open, and then immediately close in on him and rip that ball away. He's fantastic. And you don't hear a peep from him ever. And the same said for Pat Surtain. I'm not, this isn't an argument over who's better. It's just an argument that Stingley's on the same level. And it was inevitable that the team had to pay him. And again, the length surprises me. But I'm sure, again, win-win. The guaranteed money is there for Stingley. That's what matters. The guy, no matter what, at the end of these next 3 years, will be $89 million richer. The guy reset the cornerback market. J.C. Horn got his contract and set it to 25, and Stingley jumped him a whole 5 and went to 30. And this is where the NFL is going, man. Every market's going to be reset. This salary cap's going to keep on booming, and in a couple of years when the TV deal's up, it's going to really boom. Like, it went up this offseason, 2025? In a couple of years, I think we'll be looking at a $400 million salary cap. As crazy as that sounds, I just think that that's where we're going to be at by 2028, or whenever the TV rights deal is up. The year that's renegotiated, expect the salary cap to be up to $400 million. That's my guess. Which is why all of these contracts, we react and we say how bad they are in the moment or how good they are. And at the end of the day, in 2 years, like, at the end of the day, in 2 years, T. Higgins is probably going to be outside the top 15 wide receivers paid. Certainly in 3. At the end of the day, Derek Stingley's the number 1 corner right now. In 2 years, he won't be. Just nobody ever is. And then we'll look at the Stingley contract and we'll be like, wow, that's a steal. Like, you already look at the Surtain one that way. He's at $24 million a year. He's like the 4th highest paid corner already, and he was extended last offseason. It's just so much booming right now that, again, this is why I said it before, but I'll say it here for any Texans fan that just skipped to this point. Better to pay your guys early. Houston's paying Stingley as soon as he's available to pay. That's smart. They worked it out. Casario's done a great job. The defense is insane. You know, Stingley, Bullock, Lassiter, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Petrie, Al-Shaair, Christian Harris, Daniil Hunter, Will Anderson Jr. You know, this is one of the best defenses in all of football. And you could argue the best from a personnel standpoint when healthy. Houston, while yes, CJ Stroud is great and so is Nico Collins, this is a defensive football team. They have the identity of their head coach, D'Amico Ryans, the swarm mentality. It's there. And they just locked up either the best or second best player on the defense, depending on how you feel about Will Anderson Jr., because that guy's a freak. So is Derek Stingley, and I love that Houston paid him.